Suddenly there's a name that comes up in every conversation, a coworker who's so much easier to work with. You haven't even met your competition and you're already losing to them. Most people believe this is just an innocent comparison, a passing comment made without much thought behind it. But in advanced behavioral psychology, we know this is one of the oldest and most effective manipulation tactics that exists. It's called triangulation, and today you are going to learn exactly how it's built, why it works so precisely on your brain, and the exact method to exit the triangle before it takes hold. Triangulation is deceptively simple in structure. A manipulator introduces a third person, real or exaggerated, into the dynamic between you and them, and positions that third person as a silent measuring stick you are constantly, invisibly being compared against. This third person doesn't need to be a romantic rival. It can be a coworker who's supposedly more competent, a friend who's supposedly more fun to be around, or even a family member who's supposedly easier to please. The specific identity of the third point in the triangle barely matters. What matters is the function they serve, which is manufacturing scarcity around the manipulator's approval. Here is why this works so effectively on your brain. Human beings are wired with an ancient, deeply embedded status tracking system, built for a world where social ranking determined access to resources and safety. When a manipulator casually mentions this other person, your brain does not process it as a neutral piece of information. It processes it as a competitive threat, instantly and involuntarily. You did not choose to start comparing yourself. Your nervous system did that automatically, the same way it would automatically flinch from a sudden loud noise. This is precisely why triangulation feels so intensely uncomfortable, even when the comparison is vague, unverifiable, or completely one-sided. Notice the specific pattern once you know what to look for. The mentions are almost always casual and repeated, never framed as a direct comparison, which would be easy to identify and push back against. Instead, they arrive sideways. Oh, my coworker never complains about overtime like this. My friend always remembers things like this without being asked. Each individual comment seems small, almost forgettable, deniable if challenged. But cumulatively they build a persistent low-level anxiety that you are perpetually falling short of some invisible standard, one you can never fully see or verify because the comparison point is never brought into direct, complete view. This is the second critical piece of the mechanism, and it is what makes triangulation so uniquely damaging. You cannot compete with a ghost. You cannot address specifics with someone who exists mostly as a name mentioned in passing, so instead you begin auditioning. You start unconsciously adjusting your behavior, your responses, even your personality, trying to outperform a phantom standard that keeps shifting shape depending on what will produce the most anxiety in you at any given moment. Meanwhile, the manipulator gains something extremely valuable from this dynamic. Your increased effort, your heightened attentiveness, and your anxious eagerness to please, all without ever having made a single direct demand they would have to take ownership of. Here is the exact three-phase method to exit the triangle. Phase number 1 is the naming. The next time the comparison surfaces, resist the urge to compete with it or defend yourself against it. Instead, calmly name the pattern out loud. I've noticed you bring up so-and-so a lot in comparison to me. What's that about? This single question does something critical. It moves the third person from an invisible ambient pressure into a visible name dynamic that now has to be explained, and manipulation that requires an explanation loses most of its power immediately. Phase number 2 is the refusal to audition. Consciously catch yourself the moment you feel the urge to prove your worth against this invisible standard, and simply decline the performance. You do not need to demonstrate that you're just as good, or better, or different in some redeeming way. Your value is not on trial, and refusing to enter a contest you never agreed to is not the same as losing it. Phase number 3 is the direct request for specifics. If the manipulator continues referencing this person vaguely, ask a plain, specific question. What exactly would you like me to do differently? This forces the comparison out of the shadows and into a concrete, actionable request, one they can either state honestly, revealing there was a real, specific concern all along, or one they will suddenly struggle to articulate, revealing that the entire comparison was never really about behavior at all. It was about keeping you slightly off balance. Once you consistently apply this three-phase method, the triangle collapses, because triangulation depends entirely on ambiguity and unearned competition. The moment you name it, refuse to audition, and demand specifics, there is no ghost left to compete against, only a person who now has to speak plainly or stop bringing it up altogether. The next time a name starts appearing in every conversation like a silent scoreboard, do not start performing. Name the pattern, refuse the audition, and demand the specifics. You hold the psychological matrix now. If you want to keep building your psychological armor and mastering the hidden laws of human behavior, protect your mind by hitting that subscribe button right now. Stay aware, stay safe, and never let them pull your strings.